Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome back to episode 82 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, a show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. As always, I'm Sarah Croce, I'm the host, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a different, a better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so someone who's working in an organization, maybe in the marketing department, maybe in another department, and you're also just thinking about how can we do this differently. If you are a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. And if you're new here, yay, happy to have you here. And maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, then you can download your one-page marketing plan with the gentle marketing version of the 7 Ps of marketing at sarahzenacroce.com/one-page. This comes with 7 email prompts to kind of help you reflect on these different Ps. Today's conversation fits under the 3rd P, the P that stands for people. So I call them our people. I also sometimes refer to them as our ideal clients. You hear the word avatar, you hear the word target audience, but essentially it's our people. So today I'm talking to Eli Trier, who's an awesome lady whom I've recently met. And she's helping quiet revolutionaries connect and communicate. That's her tagline on her website. And obviously, immediately, I'm like, oh my God, I need to talk to her. So we cover Eli's story and how she realized that all she wanted to do was run community projects. We also talk about her definition of a community and how it's different from a tribe. What a community project really is. So she kind of takes us into that and shares some really, really good examples. And then also goes into this idea of authenticity. I ask her, well, what is authenticity to you? It's kind of become a buzzword. And so she defines what it is for her, and then also goes into some ways on how she recommends connecting authentically with your people. And yeah, so much more of that kind of left brain and right brain stuff. I just know you'll love her. Way before I ever coined the term, the gentle marketing revolution, Eli was talking about quiet revolutions. And I quote again from her website, "Starting a marketing revolution with integrity." So as they say, brilliant minds, etc. Joking aside, I'm super thrilled and honored to have Eli on the show. It really means a lot to me. It's a testimony that true gentle marketers collaborate, even if our ideas are very similar. And it's even better because I just know you'll love this conversation. So without further ado, here's Eli Trier. Hey, Eli. So good to speak to you. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you. We just discussed offline that you just moved houses, and that's always a big deal, right? Especially for introverts. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Are you all settled in now?
Getting there slowly. Yes, everything's unpacked. It's just learning how to be in a new space.
Okay, awesome. Well, I came across your name via our common friend, Caroline Wood. She was the guest on episode 71. And on your website, you talk about communities. And that immediately resonated with me. So I then discovered also that you had worked with Tara McMullen, who was also a guest on this podcast. And we actually talked about creating a community-based business. And then I found out that you were the one who helped her with that kind of project. And so I was like, oh, I just have to talk to her. So yeah, so glad to have you. I want to read something that you say on your about page and then kind of have you go into your story. So it says, in 2018, I came to the realization that all I wanted to do was run community projects. A week later, I had a website up and a beta client to test out my methodology, and I was off. And I'm still obsessed. I adore my work and the incredible clients I get to co-create with. This is the work I was born to do. So tell us that story and kind of what led to that aha moment.
Yeah, it was a real kind of roundabout journey, I have to say. Lots of ins and outs and ups and downs. But the community project thing, before I had this business, which is very much focused on connection and community, I was a freelance illustrator and a creativity coach. And one of the things I started randomly doing was these community projects. And they started off with my talking to a friend of mine who was also an artist, and her saying, oh, yes, but I'm not really an artist because I do paper cuts. I don't do like oil paintings and things. And she's internationally renowned. She's in galleries all over the world. She does commissions for, hotels all over the world, cruise ships, all sorts of stuff. Her full-time living is making art. Mm. And I said, but that's ridiculous. If anyone, I'm not the real artist because I just do illustrations and they get hidden away in books and things. And we both realized that we were being ridiculous and that, of course, we were both real artists. And I thought, oh, if we're both feeling like this, two capable women who earn the majority of our living from making art, I wonder how everybody else is feeling. So I gathered together 30 of my artist friends and I asked them the question, what does being an artist with a capital A mean to you? And they came back with all sorts of interesting responses. And I created this project. I sent out their responses every day via email. And we had a Facebook group where we all talked about it and shared resources and interesting things. And it was by far the most interesting, successful, juicy, just lovely thing I had ever done for my business as a part of my business. And as a result of it, I ended up getting a whole bunch of new subscribers and clients and all sorts of stuff that came directly from the project. Mm-hmm. And that was back in 2015, 2016. And I still get people now who've come to me because they were a part of that initial project, which is quite phenomenal. So I thought, that maybe this is a fluke, it can't possibly, be repeatable. So I ran a couple more and lo and behold, it was repeatable. And they were just so much fun. And I loved them so much, like being able to actually have a really deep conversation about a topic that mattered, which the internet very rarely gives us a chance to do. It's very, very, everything's at hyper speed. It's a short article here or a weekend summit there. You really get the chance to really kind of settle into something. And I'm a massive introvert. I like to have a bit of time to process stuff and then come back and rejoin the conversation and things like that. So they just felt new and different and much more peaceful than a lot of the stuff that's online. So yeah, I had come to the end of a particular project I was working on, particularly, and I just thought, actually, this is just what I want to do. So off I went.
That's amazing. I think for somebody who hears this idea for the first time, including myself, we're kind of going, well, it's a nice term, but what does that mean? What is a community project? I hear that you had kind of basically had threw a question out there and then had everybody participate in this conversation. But is it always? Is that basically the framework? Very left brain thinking, saying, is that the framework? Is that how it works?
Yeah, the ingredients are very simple. So you want a group of people that you choose based on certain criteria. You want a topic that they're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then the basic building blocks are emails, so content sent out via a daily email, and then somewhere you can go and talk about that content with a wider audience, so usually a Facebook group or something like that.
Mm.
So the ingredients are very simple, but it's like tying all of those bits together with some strategy behind it that actually makes it effective as a business and marketing tool.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
primarily what I do with people, is like we take these ingredients, which are like a lump of clay, and we mold it into whatever it is that they want to achieve in their business.
And I think that's probably where your genius is, because I've led many community projects, but I can't with all honesty say that, all of them turned into like a client magnet on a repeatable basis. So I think there is part, like you said, part of it is the community aspect, but the other part is like the strategy behind it that you developed over time. One question I have, I guess, also is like, how is this community different from a tribe or just followers or subscribers?
I think it comes down to the way that the community is set up. So if you're looking at a group of subscribers or followers on social media or something like that, for example, it's very much, I mean, it's all in the word followers. It's like you're out there on front, you're giving them the content, you're, having the conversation, putting out content, starting conversations, all of that, and they are following you. It's more of a broadcast focused thing.
Right. Yeah.
As in, everybody look at me. The kind of the guru model, the kind of expert model, that sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas with a community project, the hierarchy disappears the way that I set them up. So you're looking at being the facilitator of a conversation rather than the person who has all the answers. Mm-hmm. So you're the person who asks the question, and then you gather together people that have a really great selection of answers. Because 9 times out of 10, there isn't just one answer to a particular problem. It's like you need to dig a bit deeper. And then you also get the people who are consuming the project, not the people that you've invited to contribute specifically, but the audience of the project are also invited to contribute and share their own experience. So you get this model which is sort of led from within. So you're just the facilitator. And one of the things that a lot of my clients kind of really struggle with when it comes to this process is actually being able to step back, because they've spent so many years being on the top of the pile, being the kind of the leader from way out front. Right. But they're not used to kind of taking that step back and being a facilitator and bringing everybody else into it as well.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm two things. I'm part of a group called Bentoism that's led by the ex-CEO of Kickstarter, Yancey Strickler. And he's creating that kind of community where it's like, he led it the first year, and now he's like, but this is ours now. And so you come in and you take over some of the calls and you lead. And so it really feels like there's no hierarchy. So that feels, it's different because it's like an ongoing thing, which I think in your community projects is kind of like there's a time, a limitation of time. So that's why it's a project, right? You work on it.
Exactly. They usually last around about a month. Okay. But many of my clients then just fall so much in love with the community that they've built that they carry it going, and they carry it on, keep it going in other ways.
Oh, so it's not like, oh, okay, that was nice. Okay, bye, everybody. It's like, obviously you've created something and now let's keep going. Yeah. And it's also what I'm doing on the Gentle Business Circle. So that's my community for gentle marketers. And I really say, this is not a place where I show up and teach. This is a place where we have conversations around gentle marketing, and where everybody has how's it go again? A leader in each seat. So really meaning, you bring your specialty, your expertise, I bring mine, but everybody has their own. And so I love that idea of, bringing this to a certain topic. So that's what the community project really is, right? It's like, let's talk about this topic in this time frame. And it sounds like almost like there's a round table. So that's kind of the people who are speaking. And then there's the audience, but they're also part of it. They're belonging rather than just be followers or viewers or...
Exactly. They're not just passive consumers. They are encouraged to bring their own, opinions and ideas and things to the table as well.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it's so different. I remember when I first started doing, that was pre-COVID, I first started doing Zoom calls. I called it back then the Gentle Marketing Intensive. And I said, look, this is not a webinar. Please, show up on camera and participate. It's a conversation. And it was really hard for people. They're like, what do you mean? I can't just lean back and do something else at the same time. So is that also something you feel like some of the, not your clients, but the participants struggled with? Or I feel like COVID has really helped us with that. Now it's like, everybody knows that, how Zoom works and to show up on camera, but probably before COVID, I think it was just very new and different.
Yeah, I mean, the discussion that happens in the Facebook groups for the projects tends to be a lot more written based. There is some kind of live action that happens and roundtables and things like that alongside it. But because it's mostly text based, they tend to find it easier to come in and comment and share an opinion and stuff because they're not kind of standing there, voice quivering in front of a bunch of strangers. It's just, they're just leaving a comment or sharing a resource or something. So it's a very different sort of community. And I think it really uses the online tools that we have. I think it's very introvert friendly. I am much more comfortable kind of reading, absorbing, processing, and then coming back to give my thoughts rather than being kind of in the moment, like, what do you think about this? Right. Speak now. So I think with that, they very much appeal to a particular sort of person.
Yeah, I can see that. Would you, like, when clients come to you, have they maybe already experienced a community project somewhere else, or do you have to do a lot of explaining and kind of go through what we just did, what seems to be the case?
Yeah. And when I was first beginning, I had to do a lot of explaining, and a lot of my marketing material was around kind of educating people on what this thing was and why it was useful and why I thought they were so valuable. As I've worked with more and more clients and people have been of somebody else's community project more and more, it's more likely these days that they already have a fairly clear idea of what a community project actually is. And they've come through, I was part of so-and-so's project, or I contributed to somebody else's project. So they have a really good idea of like how the structure of it works and how all the pieces fit together.
Right.
So I guess that means I've done my job at educating people a bit more now, so they can help explain it to other people.
It's easier, right? When people come to you and they're like, I want this, like she had.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you consider a community project as part of marketing, or is that not like, which department would it fall into if you had to pick one?
It's a tricky one. I mean, I suppose all the stuff that I do. So I have kind of 3 prongs to my approach, of which the community project is part of that. I also do a very kind of topsy-turvy version of email marketing that I teach people. And I also do networking that isn't networking, basically. So there is, oh my gosh, I've completely forgotten the question you just asked me.
Yeah, if it's considered marketing, if that is...
Yes. So all of those things are technically fall under the marketing umbrella.
Right.
But the way in which that I approach them is so much more nuanced than that. It's so much deeper than that. I mean, with the community projects in particular, I say that if you go into it thinking of it as a main and kind of aiming your arrow at that, they will fall flat. Yeah. If you go into it focused on the conversation, the idea, the community, the connections, then marketing stuff happens as a result of that.
Right.
So it's all this kind of roundabout way of doing things where you have to focus on something different in order to get the marketing benefits, if that makes sense.
Would you be able to give us an example of one of your clients, kind of, give listeners a real good idea of what we're talking about? And I'm trying to understand, I talk a lot about bringing in more of your worldview into your marketing. And so I'm wondering if that's part of it, like if the conversation is kind of this big picture conversation, or if you have an example, I think that would really help understand it better.
Yes, of course. So if you think about it in terms of, let me think. Yeah, okay. So I had a business coach client who her whole thing is about how we don't have to be kind of shiny, perfect human beings to run a successful business. We can be unshiny, we can be messy, we can just be actual human beings and still have a successful business. So she ran a project called The Messy Meaningful Business, where she invited people to contribute on the messy parts of their business, basically. Like show us the cracks, show us the bits where you feel, it doesn't look like anybody else's, or it's a bit of a mess or whatever, and how it actually works for you. So she had a lot of people, for example, with mental health issues that crop up every now and again, or physical health issues, or people who, are very, very right brain and couldn't get on board with like linear planning and stuff like that. So it was just like a different perspective. And all of those people that she invited had the sort of audience that she wanted to attract. She wanted to bring more of those people in who appreciated having the human elements to business. And she chose those people based on, them having that honesty about what was going on. So their audience was already kind of primed for that. So she had that. There was a lot of conversation about, how to run a business when you're actually a human being and not a robot. And, a lot of stuff about anti-hustle culture. And this is all stuff that she teaches in her coaching practice with clients. Right. So she was gathering in more people. She wasn't the one out there in the front saying, hustle culture is bad and we should all be, messy and stuff. It was more that she was allowing the other people to tell that story. So she was showing people what that meant rather than actually kind of preaching to them. And every single person who contributed content to that project was backing up her point of view.
I love
so
that.
She was selling the idea. Not come and coach with me and I'll help you to overcome hustle culture. Because if that is what she had done, if she had gone into it going, I want people who, that I can funnel into this program on overcoming hustle culture or whatever, it wouldn't have worked, because she wouldn't have been able to just stand back and hold space for the other people's stories.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot about holding space, isn't it? I think that is the new skill. I took an 18-month program on holding space. Sorry, not 18, 8 months program on holding space. And I think it's really like this mindset shift where you are not the teacher anymore. That's what we've been taught. You have to teach constantly. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I'm not the teacher, then what am I really doing here? Oh, you're holding a space and it's like the modern summit in a way, it sounds like to me.
It's similar. It's similar in the fact that you've got people talking about a particular theme, and yet very, very different.
Very, very different, because it's not like everybody's like, look at me, I know everything, best. And
exactly. And this is more, look at this idea. Let's unravel this together. Let's figure this out together. Let's work together to make each other better.
Yeah. And I think that's so introvert friendly again, because it's just like, yeah, let's not focus so much on me. Let's focus on the idea. Let's focus on, let's shine the spotlight on others and bring in their concepts. So I think it's really brilliant. I think, the skeptics would probably say, show me some numbers and stats, also the left brain loves stats. So how do you measure the success with these community projects?
Well, on an individual client basis, it's very much about, we set out goals at the beginning of the process for what they'd like to achieve, what they want their project to do for them. And then we revisit those at the end of the project to see, how well we've managed to achieve those. But a few kind of example things. So the coach that I was just talking about, she filled her client roster for a whole year off the back of the people that she met in the project. I had another client who had her first 5-figure launch coming off the back of her community project. And most of my favorite result, I feel a bit awkward talking about the kind of, because there are a million other factors that go into this. A lot of it is just having the right thing at the right time. The woman who got her first 5-figure launch, she's been in business for 10 years. There are no magic bullets, but it's just about bringing together the right people and having those conversations with them. And if you can do that, then magic happens, because these projects have such longevity. The biggest thing that all of my clients across the board get is enormous clarity on what it is that they're trying to do and why it's important, and the fact that people actually give a shit about it. And confidence to be able to stand up and say, I believe this is a conversation worth having. Having these values is crucial to me as a business owner, and this is why.
Yeah, it really sounds like it's a lot about values as well, and standing for something, right? So that,
absolutely. I mean, people who run businesses that are so closely interwoven with their values of, how we should be in the world and how we should be in business as well, because there's a lot of very shady stuff going on in online business particularly. And this is such a wonderful way to kind of stick your flag in the ground and say, no, this is what I stand for. This is my revolution. This is why I'm doing this. It's not just to get, money in the bank, although that's great. It's actually because I want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's some powerful stuff.
It really is. I love the concept. What I also would like to have you talk about is this idea of authenticity. So, it's almost kind of become a buzzword. And yes, the marketing trend is like, let me do something authentic. And this, if it didn't have that bad reputation, this would feel like really authentic, right? That's the word that we would use. And yet it's like the minute you say, authentic, it's like, is she really doing it in an authentic way? Or is it kind of a faked authenticity? So what does it mean to you, the real meaning of authenticity?
It really is about being brave enough to be true to yourself and what you really believe in, even if it's a bit uncomfortable. There's a lot of vulnerability involved in true authenticity, which is why there's so much kind of fake authenticity. You put something kind of faux vulnerable out there to show that you're, ticking that particular box, whereas actually it doesn't really affect you.
Right.
And I think true authenticity is honest, even when it's not convenient. Being able to stand up and say, like, I believe this, even if it's going to cost you clients, even if it's going to cost you money or your reputation, or being able to stand up and say, oh, I made a really bad mistake here. And, just being able to own your choices, your decisions, how you show up in the world, and be closely aligned with that, I think.
Yeah. And really not using it in any kind of way that's linked to, sales. Like, I can always tell when there's like, authenticity applied just in order to get more sales. And that
exactly, which is why I said what I said about, like, if you go into a community project looking at it as a marketing campaign and thinking, I want X number of subscribers and X number of sales off the back of this, it falls flat completely.
Yeah. It might have worked like 10 years ago, but now people see right through it. They just do. Yeah.
You really have to care. You have to care, and you have to prove that you care, and you have to encourage other people to get on board with you. You know, it's a rallying cry.
Mm-hmm. It really is. You mentioned it already before. You also teach people about email marketing, and so you call it the uncommon email. So tell us a bit about what's different about your approach in email marketing.
I think that I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think the biggest difference is that I approach email as a correspondence rather than a broadcast. And I think there's a lot of, certainly over the last kind of 5 or 6 years, when email marketing kind of got very trendy, there's a lot of stuff about just kind of bombarding people with emails, with having, you know, getting as many people as possible on your list, regardless of whether they were actually the right people or not. Whereas my approach is very much like, if you're building an email list, you're actually building a community. And you're not entitled to that. It's a privilege and an honor and worthy of respect, because every single one of those people is a human being who already has an overflowing inbox full of all sorts of stuff. Like, you have to earn it, and you have to respect it as the privilege it is for people to stand up and say, like, yeah, I'm interested enough in hearing from you every single week. Like, that's just magnificent.
Right. Yeah. And so again, it feels like a kind of an unlearning from a lot of the techniques that we've been taught. And that's also what I talk about in gentle marketing. It's like you have to almost unlearn years and years of certain things that you've been brainwashed into doing. Do you kind of have this conversation with clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the biggest thing that my clients get hung up on, is like, but I do it this way. And you have to say, no, you have to put all of that down.
Yeah.
And you have to, it feels weird, but it's going to work.
Yeah. And they just need to trust you, right? You're like, no, hang in there. It will work.
Yeah, essentially, yes. And I can see, like, every time I've had pushback from a client about that particular thing, their project has not gone as well as they wanted it to. And I can point to it and I can say, well, look, you did this, this, and this. And actually what I told you to do, what I recommended that you did, was this, this, and this, which is the complete opposite.
Right.
And it's a really tricky one. And I'm fortunate that I have managed to work with some amazing people who really do get it. And that all kind of adds to fuel to my fire. You know, I can say, like, if you want these results, if you want this to happen, then you have to. You have to. You like, don't just trust me. You can trust everybody else that I've worked with.
You know, it's really, really encouraging to me, because when I wrote the Gentle Marketing Revolution book, I was looking for stories like this. I'm like, where are these success stories that prove to me that gentle marketing, you know, in a way, community projects, to me, that's a gentle marketing approach. We're not just pushing the sale, we're, you know, creating community. And I tell you, Ellie, it's really actually much harder to find the stories of gentle marketers, because obviously the pushy, obnoxious marketers are much louder and they're everywhere. I did end up finding stories, but these are the great success stories that we need to hear more about, because gentle marketers, they are, and I understand because I was there too, we're scared to let go of the old and kind of trusting the unknown, because we don't know yet. There's just not enough stories out there that say, no, but this works, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people come to me because they're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this, like, hyper visible, me, like be the guru, be like internet famous thing. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of them just don't believe that you can have a successful business without that.
Exactly. It's almost like it needs to. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, you just need to talk to people. Like, Everything I do, all of my work, all of my, all of the free content I put out, all of the paid content I put out, it all boils down to just treat people with respect and have conversations with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It almost feels like you need to get to this point of breakdown and say, I just can't do it anymore, in order to say, well, I need another way.
Yeah, unfortunately, because we're taught that, any way you look on the internet, if you look up email marketing, if you look up, networking or anything like that, or summits or whatever, it's all the same template. Everybody's using the same formula. So of course you just think that's how it's done.
That's how it's done. That's just what it takes. Yeah. Wow. What do you think, if you think about, you started this in 2015, you said?
I started the business I'm running now was in 2018, but I've been running 2008, and before that as well, I ran a hotel. So I've been self-employed for most of my adult life.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the community project. So about 3 years, right? And I just see that there's momentum. I see little signs everywhere that this is where we're heading, and so I'm curious to hear from you. How do you see business evolve? Let's say 10 years from now, how's it going to look like?
I think it's going to look very different than it does now. I'm fascinated, mildly disgusted at the moment by the fact that kind of human marketing, in inverted commas, has become the kind of the new trendy buzzword among the online marketers who wore down authentic and vulnerable and what have you as words until they were meaningless. This concept of kind of, let's all be human and let's talk to each other and treat each other with respect. They're parroting it, they're saying it because it's trendy right now, but they're not actually living it. They're not actually embodying that in their businesses. So that it's sort of encouraging, because this is kind of taking root, the idea that people aren't just numbers to be funneled through your sales funnel, and they're not walking credit cards,
right?
But it means that it's open to a lot of abuse if people are using it as a marketing tool and not actually embodying that in how they run their businesses. So I don't really know how that's going to pan out, but I think social media is going to look very different in 10 years. I think people who rely now on social media are going to find themselves in a very sticky situation very soon if they don't have other platforms, like platforms that they own, supporting their businesses at the same time. There's a lot of stuff coming in over the next couple of years around privacy laws. So a lot of advertising is going to change drastically. And, things like retargeting ads and the Facebook pixel and stuff like that is actually going to be a violation of data laws. So they're going to have to think on their feet if they're using advertising, Facebook ads as their primary way of getting people in. And I just think this idea of actually connecting with other human beings and talking to people, the businesses who are doing that are going to have really, really solid foundations for whatever comes down the pipeline at us, because there's always going to be a new shiny tool, to play with. Social media, webinars, this funnel, that funnel, whatever. There's always something new that is the next big thing. But if you build your business on a foundation of old school stuff, like actually talking to people, them and finding out what they want and then making that, that's
I couldn't agree more. And it's just, I think for a lot of people, it's still too slow. They're still in that kind of, fast results, quick fixes. I need clients now. And so that's
which is
why.
Nonsense. I mean, you can get clients instantly if you're connected to people. Like, it's really not that difficult to have clients. But building an audience, especially the sort of audience that used to be kind of, par for the course 5 years ago, where you could just like put up any crappy old ebook and 1 million people would sign up for it. Like, the internet doesn't work like that anymore. You have to work a lot harder, because we're all overwhelmed with how much information there is to consume every single day.
Yeah, too much content.
Yeah, when I started working in content marketing back in 2010, it was enough if a company had a blog and a Twitter account. They were streets ahead of everybody else, and they could put up just rubbish and it would do them good.
Right.
And these days, unless it's really good, don't bother.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I also agree with you about social media. I think it's going to change drastically. And a lot of these hustle businesses are based on ads. And so they're going to have to change their strategy, because it's that hustle mentality. It's like, let's bring in more and more and more leads and convert them into a quick buck. Well, what if the leads don't come in anymore because you can't just buy more ads? Then that whole flywheel is just going to stop. So, yep, I think you're on to something, that's for sure.
So yes, connections, one-to-one connections, and email. Email is not going anywhere. It's been around for ages. There's no algorithms. You earn people's attention and it will never let you down.
Yeah. I loved our conversation. Thanks so much, Ellie. That was really, really great. And I think it really resonates with my audience, because that's really what we're all about. I always ask the last question, what are you grateful for today or this week?
Today, I am grateful for my lovely new house, which has about 4 times the amount of space I had in my old place, which was a teeny tiny studio. And now I have a 1.5 bedroom apartment all to myself. And I'm on my knees thanking the universe for my good fortune at the moment.
That's awesome. I'm very happy for you. Please do share where people can find you and how they can work with you.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to come to my website, which is elitriercommunities.com. And if you go to the resources page, sign up for my Sunday letters, which are my weekly email newsletter, funnily enough. And that's where I do most of my communicating. I'm not really on social media very much these days, so they're worth it, I promise.
Good for you. Not on social media. You're walking your talk. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining me. This has been a delight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So did I overpromise, or was it really as genius as I kind of told you in advance? You'll find the show notes of this episode with further links at sarahsandacroce.com/GBR82. And as always, all the links are also in the description if you're listening to this episode while you're walking. So just click on your app. There is the description, and all the links are in there. Please check out Ellie's website at elitrier.com. That's ELITRIER.com, and sign up to her Sunday newsletter. It's just a funny little story. Whenever I'm spelling or someone is spelling something to me, I can't spell in English. Like, it's just the weirdest thing when you learn a language as a child, and you learn the ABCs in that language, you learn how to spell. Even though I'm fluent in English, my spelling is way better if someone spells it to me in German, where in English I always confuse the E and the I, and it's just a mess. So that's also why I rarely ever spell out my the whole website for me. So sarahsandacroce.com. I can't spell. Anyways, next week I'm talking to Ursula York, whom I've recently met while being a guest on her Work Alchemy podcast. And here's another one that I probably didn't pronounce right, because her name is German, and she told me that she's originally from Germany. So Ursula is a very German name, or maybe also Swiss, because my aunt's name is Ursula. And York, that's Jorch. And in German, that would be pronounced Jorch. So I'm not even sure how she pronounces it. I think she told me. But anyway, that being said, I can't wait to this conversation, because we are going to talk about measuring your business's impact. can't wait. In the meantime, let's be the change we want to see in the world. Talk soon.